Produced by Liang Gu, The Little Prince. Spirit of dedication. To Leon Voss. I apologize to children because I dedicated this book to an adult. I had a serious excuse. This adult was my best friend in the world. I have another excuse. This adult can understand everything, even children's books. I have a third excuse. The man lives in France, where it is hungry and cold. She really needed comfort. If all these excuses are not enough, I would like to dedicate this book to one of the children of this great man. All great people are children first. But few remember it. So I correct my dedication. To Lon Worth. As a Child. Chapter 1. When I was 6 years old, I saw a magnificent picture in a book about virgin forests, living stories. It represents a python that swallows a wild beast. This is a copy of the drawing. The book writes, the python swallows its prey whole without chewing it. Then they can no longer move and sleep during the 6 months of digestion. Then I thought a lot about the jungle adventure, and then I managed to draw my first drawing with colored pencils. My first drawing looked like this. I showed my masterpiece to the adults and asked them if my painting frightened them. They answered me, "Why do hats scare people?" My painting does not represent a hat. It depicts a python digesting an elephant. Then I drew the inside of the boa constrictor so adults could understand it. They always need explanation. My picture number 2 looked like this. The adults suggested that I put aside drawings of open or closed boas and focus on geography, history, arithmetically and grammatically. In this way, I gave up my brilliant painting career at the age of 6. I was frustrated by the failure of figures 1 and 2. Adults can never understand anything on their own, and it's tiring for children to always have it explained to them. So I had to choose another career, and I learned to fly airplanes. I've flown all over the world. Indeed, geography has been very useful to me. I know how to spot China at first glance from Arizona. This is useful if you get lost at night. I've had a lot of contact with a lot of serious people throughout my life. I have lived with adults many times. I saw them very close. It doesn't improve my opinion too much. When I meet someone who seems a little sane to me, I experiment on her with the first image I've ever kept. I wonder if she really understands me. But she always answered me, "It's a hat." So I didn't talk to him about boas, primeval forests, or stars. I put myself within his reach. I talked bridge, golf, politics, and relationships with him. My Lord is glad to meet such a reasonable man. Chapter 2. I live alone. There was no one to really talk to until I collapsed in the Sahara 6 years ago. Something broke in my engine. Since I had neither a mechanic nor a passenger with me, I prepared to attempt a difficult repair on my own. This is a matter of life and death for me. I had almost no water for 8 days. So that first night, I fell asleep on a beach 1,000 miles from inhabited land. I am more isolated than a castaway on a raft in the middle of the ocean. So you can imagine my surprise when a funny little sound woke me up at dawn. She said, "Please, draw me a sheep." Well, draw me a sheep. I jumped up as if struck by lightning. I gave my eyes a good rub. I looked carefully. I saw a very unusual little man looking at me seriously. This is the best portrait I ever took of him. But my drawings are certainly not as cute as the models. It's not my fault. When I was 6 years old, adults discouraged me from pursuing a career as a painter, and I learned to draw nothing but closed boas and open boas. Then I looked at this ghost with wide eyes in surprise. Please remember, I'm 1,000 miles from any populated area. Now my little guy doesn't look lost, or dying of fatigue, or dying of hunger, or dying of thirst, or dying of fear. He looked nothing like a child lost in the middle of the desert, 1,000 miles from any inhabited area. When I finally could speak, I said to him, "But what are you doing here?" Then he repeated it to me very softly, as if saying something very serious. "Please, draw me a sheep." When the mystery is too impressive, we dare not defy. Although this is ridiculous to me. But 1,000 miles from all inhabited land, and facing the danger of death, I took a piece of paper and a pen from my pocket. But then I remembered that my main studies were geography, history, arithmetic, and grammar, and I told the little man, with a bit of bad humor, "I can't draw." He answered me, "It doesn't matter. Draw me a sheep." Since I had never painted a sheep, I repainted one of the only 2 paintings I could of him. That's a closed python. I was surprised to hear the little man answer me, "No. No. I don't want an elephant in a python. Pythons are very dangerous and elephants are very bulky. At home it is small. I need a sheep. Draw me a sheep." So I drew it. He looked carefully, and then, "No." The man was already very ill. "Make another one." I drew, My friend smiled kindly and tolerantly, "You see clearly, this is not a sheep, this is a ram. He has horns." So I drew it again, but it was still rejected, the same as before, This one is too old. I want a long-lived sheep. So, impatient and eager to start disassembling my engine, I scribbled this picture. I said, "That's the cash register. The sheep you want is inside." But I was surprised to see a smile on my young judge's face. "That's exactly what I wanted. Do you think this sheep needs a lot of grass? For what?" "Because my place is small, that must be enough. I gave you a little sheep." He turned his head and looked at the painting. "It's not that small." Hey! He fell asleep. That's how I got to know the little prince. Chapter 3. It took me a long time to understand where he was coming from. The little prince asked me many questions, but he never seemed to hear my questions. He turned his head and looked at the painting. "It's not that small." Hey! He fell asleep. That's how I got to know the little prince. Chapter 3. It took me a long time to understand where he was coming from. The little prince asked me many questions, but he never seemed to hear my questions. These were accidental words that revealed everything to me little by little. So when he saw my airplane for the first time, "I can't draw my airplane, it's too complicated for me," he asked me, "What is that?" This is not one thing. It flew. This is an airplane. This is my plane. I was proud to tell him that I was flying. Then he shouted, "How? You fell from the sky." "Yes," I said humbly. "Ah. That's funny." The little prince suddenly burst into a very beautiful laugh, which annoyed me very much. I want people to take my misfortune seriously. Then he added, so you came from heaven too? What planet are you from? I suddenly caught a glimpse of his expression, and in the mystery of his existence, I suddenly asked, so you are from another planet? But he didn't answer me. He looked at my plane and nodded slightly. Indeed, at this point, you can't come from a very far away place. He fell into a long reverie. Then he took my sheep out of his pocket and immersed himself in his treasure. You can imagine my reaction to. How interesting was this semi-confidence of other planets? So I tried to find out more. Where do you come from, my little one? Where is home? Where do you want to take my sheep? After deep thought, he answered me, the advantage of the crate you gave me is that at night it could serve as his home. Certainly. If you are kind, I will also give you a rope to tie him up during the day. There is also a wooden stake. This suggestion seemed to shock the little prince. Tie him up? What an interesting idea. But if you don't tie it up, it will go anywhere and be lost. My friend laughed again. But where do you want him to go? Anywhere. Right in front of him. Then the little prince said seriously, it doesn't matter, my family is so small. Maybe. He added with a bit of melancholy, keep going, you won't get very far. Chapter 4. From this, I learned the second very important thing. His original planet was just bigger than a house. Bigger. This doesn't surprise me. I know very well that apart from the Earth, in addition to the big planets we name like Jupiter, Mars, and Venus, there are hundreds of other planets that are sometimes so small that it is difficult for us to see them through a telescope. When an astronomer discovers one, he gives it a number. For example, he calls it asteroid 3251 inch. I have every reason to believe that the planet the Little Prince came from is asteroid B612. This asteroid was only observed once through a telescope by Turkish astronomers in 1909. He then presented his findings with great fanfare at the International Astronomical Congress. But no one believed him because of his clothes. That's what adults are like. Fortunately. Asteroid B612's reputation led a Turkish dictator to force his people to wear European-style clothing under penalty of death. The astronomer repeated his demonstration in 1920, wearing very elegant clothing. This time everyone agreed with him. If I tell you these details about asteroid B612 and its number, it is because of your Han, adults love numbers. When you tell them about a new friend, they never ask for basic information about you. They never tell you, what does his voice sound like? What is his favorite game? Does he collect butterflies? They ask you, how old is he? How many brothers does he have? How much does he weigh? How much does his father earn? Money? Only then do they think they know him. If you say to an adult, I saw a beautiful house made of pink bricks, with geraniums in the windows and doves on the roof, they can't imagine the house. You have to tell them, I saw a house worth 100,000 francs. Then they exclaim, how beautiful. So, if you tell them, the proof of the existence of the little prince is that he is delightful, he smiles, and he wants a sheep. When you want a sheep hour, that's evidence of, we exist. They will shrug their shoulders and call you a kid. But if you tell them, the planet he comes from is asteroid B612, then they will believe it. They will shrug their shoulders and call you a kid. But if you tell them, the planet he comes from is asteroid B612, then they will believe it and won't ask you again. That's how they are. We shouldn't blame them. Children should be very tolerant of adults. But of course, those of us who understand life don't care much about numbers. I wanted to start this story like a fairy tale. I want to say, once upon a time, there was a little prince who lived on a planet not much bigger than him. He needs a friend. For those who know how to live, this seems more true. Because I don't like others to read my books easily. Recalling these past events, I feel very sad. I am so far away from my friends. It had been 6 years since his sheep had been gone. If I try to describe it here, it is so as not to forget it. It's sad to forget a friend. Not everyone has friends. I can become like an adult who is only interested in numbers. That's why I bought a box of colors and pencils. At my age it's hard to go back to drawing because at 6 years old you've never tried anything other than a closed boa constrictor and an open boa constrictor. Certainly. I tried to make the portraits as similar as possible. But I wasn't entirely sure I would succeed. One image fits and the other no longer looks the same. I was also a little wrong about the sizing. The little prince here is too big. He was too small there. I was also hesitant about the color of his outfit. So I fumbled around as best I could. Finally, I would get some of the more important details wrong. But you must forgive me for this. My friend never gave an explanation. Maybe he thought I was similar to him. But unfortunately, I couldn't see the sheep through the crate. Maybe I'm a bit of an adult. I must be old. Chapter 5. Every day I learn something about the planet, about departure, about journey. It comes very slowly and randomly via reflection. In this way, on the 3rd day, I experienced the tragedy of the baobab tree. Thanks to the sheep again this time, because the little prince suddenly asked me, as if he was under serious suspicion, "Sheep eat bushes, this is true, isn't it?" Yes. It's true, ah. I'm so happy. I don't understand why it's so important for sheep to eat shrubs. But the little prince added, "So they also eat baobabs?" I pointed out to the little prince that the baobabs were not shrubs but trees as big as cathedrals, even though he had a whole herd of elephants with him. Even a herd of elephants cannot defeat a baobab tree. The idea of a herd of elephants made the little prince smile, that we should put them together. But he wisely said, that the baobab tree is very small at first before it grows up, that's right. But why would you let your sheep eat baby baobabs? He replied, okay, as if it were obvious. It took me a lot of wisdom to understand this myself. But why would you let your sheep eat baby baobabs? He replied, okay, as if it were obvious. It took me a lot of wisdom to understand this myself. In fact, it is the same on the little prince's planet as on all planets. All have quality herbs and weeds. Therefore, good herbs have good seeds and weeds have bad seeds. But the seeds are invisible. They sleep in the secrets of earth until one of them decides to wake up. Then she stretched out and timidly took out a lovely, harmless twigs pushed toward the sun. If it's a radish or a rose sprig, you can let it grow however you want. But if it's a bad plant, you must pull it out as soon as you know how to identify it. But there are terrible seeds on the little prince's planet. They are the seeds of the baobab tree. The planet's soil is covered in them. But baobab, if you start too late, you'll never get rid of it. It brings chaos to the entire planet. He pierced it with its roots. If the earth is too small, and if there are too many baobab trees, they will cause the earth to crack. It was a matter of discipline, the little prince told me later. When we had our bath in the morning, we had to force ourselves regularly to distinguish the baobabs from the roses. The bushes look very much like they were when they were young, and it's a very boring job, but easy. One day, he suggested that I concentrate on creating a beautiful picture so that the children at home would remember it. If they travel one day, he told me, this might work for them. Sometimes there is no inconvenience in putting off work until later. But when it comes to baobabs, it's always a disaster. I know a planet inhabited by a sloth who neglected 3 bushes. Then, following the instructions of the little prince, I drew this planet. I don't like to take a moralist tone, but the dangers of baobabs are little known, and the risks to anyone who gets lost on an asteroid are significant, so this time I made exceptions to my reservations. I said, children, be careful of the baobabs. To warn my friends, who, like me, had been unknowingly approaching a danger for a long time, I took great pains in this painting. My lesson was worth it. You might be asking yourself, why are there no other pictures as grand as the baobab tree in this book? The answer is simple. I tried, but it didn't work. When I painted the baobab tree, I was driven by a sense of urgency. Chapter 6. Ah, little prince, I understand your melancholy little life bit by bit. For a long time, only the soft sunset could distract you. I learned this new detail on the morning of the 4th day, when you said to me, I love sunsets. Let's go watch the sunset. But we have to wait. Wait for what? Waiting for the sun to set. You look surprised at first, then you laugh at yourself. And you told me, I thought I was at home, indeed. As we all know, when it's noon in America, the sun will set over France. You can go to France and watch the sunset in just a minute. Unfortunately, France is too far away. But, on a planet this small, all you have to do is pull up your chair a few steps. You can watch the dusk anytime you want. One day, I watched 44 sunsets. After a while you added, you know, we like the sunset when we are so sad. 43 days, are you so sad? But the little prince didn't answer. Chapter 7. On the 5th day, thanks to the sheep. The secret of the little prince's life experience was revealed to me. He asked me suddenly, without any preamble, as if the result of a question that had been pondered in silence for a long time, a sheep, if it eats shrubs, does it also eat flowers? A sheep eats everything it encounters. Or even a flower with thorns? Yes. Even flowers with thorns. So what are the thorns used for? I have no idea. I was busy trying to unscrew a bolt on the engine that was too tight. I was very worried because my breakdowns were starting to get really bad. And running out of drinking water makes me fear the worst. Thorns, what are they for? The little prince never gave up once he asked a question. I was irritated by my bolts and replied in gibberish, the thorns are of no use, it is the sheer evil of the flowers. Oh. But after a moment of silence, he said to me with a sense of resentment, I don't believe you. The flowers are weak. They are very naive. They do their best to reassure themselves. They think their thorns are terrible. I didn't answer anything. At that moment I said to myself, if the bolt still doesn't hold up, I'll knock it out with a hammer. The little prince disrupted my thoughts again. You think flowers. But no. I don't believe anything. What I answered was nonsense. I am dealing with serious matters. He was shocked. Look at me. If the bolt still doesn't hold up, I'll knock it out with a hammer. The little prince disrupted my thoughts again. You think flowers. But no. I don't believe anything. What I answered was nonsense. I am dealing with serious matters. He was shocked. Look at me. Serious business. He saw me, hammer in hand, fingers smeared with grease, leaning against what seemed to him a very ugly object. You talk like an adult. This makes me a little ashamed. But he added ruthlessly, you're confusing everything. You mix everything. He was really angry. His golden hair swayed in the wind. I know there is a planet where there is a scarlet gentleman. He had never breathed flowers. He had never seen stars. He never loved anyone. He never did anything but supplement. All day long he was repeating like you, I am a serious man. I am a serious man, and it made him proud. But it's not a person, it's a mushroom. What, mushroom? The little prince was now pale with anger. For millions of years, flowers have been growing thorns. Sheep have been eating flowers for millions of years. Try to understand why they go to so much trouble to create useless thorns. Isn't this a serious matter? Isn't the war between sheep and flowers important? Isn't this more serious and important than the bonus of a big celebrity? If I know a unique flower in the world, it doesn't exist anywhere but my planet. A little sheep can destroy it in one fell swoop, as he did one morning, without realizing what he has done, and it doesn't matter. He blushed and continued, if someone likes a flower that only exists one among billions of stars, then when he sees it, he will be happy enough. He says to himself, my flower is right there. But if the sheep eats the flower, it will be to him as if suddenly all the stars have gone out. It doesn't matter. He couldn't say anything more. He burst into tears. Night falls. I dropped my tool. I don't care about my hammer. He burst into tears. Night falls. I dropped my tool. I don't care about my hammer, my bolt, thirst, or death. In a star, a planet, my Earth, there is a little prince who needs comfort. I held him in my arms. I shook. I told him, the flower you love is not in danger. I will design a muzzle for your sheep. I will design armor for your flower. I don't know what to say. I feel very embarrassed. I don't know how to contact him, where to meet him, it's so mysterious. The Land of Tears. Chapter 8. I quickly got to know this flower better. The little prince's planet has always been filled with very simple flowers, decorated only with a row of petals, which take up no space and do not disturb anyone. They will appear on the grass one morning, then disappear at night. But one day a branch sprouted, and from a seed he brought from nowhere, the little prince observed very carefully that this branch was different from the other branches. It could be a new species of baobab. But the shrub soon stopped growing and began to bloom. The little prince is watching the blooming of a huge bud, and he feels that a magical ghost will emerge from the bud, but under the protection of the green room, the flower never stops preparing for its beauty. She chose the colors carefully. She slowly put on her clothes and adjusted the petals one by one. She didn't want to go out looking as wrinkled as a poppy. She just wants her beauty to shine. Hey. Yes. She is very flirty. Her mysterious toilet went on like this for several days. Then one morning, at sunrise, she appeared. And she, who did things so accurately, yawned and said, "Ah. I just woke up. Please forgive me. I'm still very embarrassed." The little prince couldn't help but admired. "How beautiful you are." "Yeah," Hua replied softly. "I was born at the same time as the sun." The little prince guessed that she was not very modest, but she was so touching. "I think it's time to have breakfast," she quickly added. "Can you help me think about it?" The little prince was confused and went to get a watering can filled with water. "Serve this flower." So she soon tortured him with her somewhat sensitive vanity. For example, one day, talking about her 4 thorns, she said to the little prince, "They can come, tigers, with their claws." "There are no tigers on my planet," the little prince objected. Then the tiger stopped eating grass. "I am not a grass," Hua replied softly. "I'm sorry, I'm not afraid of tigers, but I hate drafts." "Don't you have a screen?" "A terrible draft. This is bad luck for the plant." The little prince said that this flower is very complicated. "At night you will place me under the globe. It's cold where you live. It's not installed well. Where do I come from?" But she had stopped. "It comes in seed form." She couldn't possibly know anything about other worlds. She felt humiliated that she had made up such a childish lie and was discovered. She coughed 2 or 3 times and wanted to wrong the little prince. "This screen? I was trying to find it, but you were talking to me." So she suppressed her cough and still brought him regret. Then, despite his good intentions, the little prince soon became suspicious of her. He took some unimportant words seriously and became very unhappy. "I shouldn't listen to him," he confided to me one day. "You should never listen to the flowers, you have to look at them. Breathing them, my planet is filled with fragrance, but I don't know what to do. This story about the claws that annoys me should make me happy." He confided in me again. I couldn't understand anything then. I should judge her by her behavior, and not based on her words. She embalmed me and inspired me. I should never have run away. I should have guessed her tenderness behind his pitiful tricks. Flowers are so contradictory. But I was too young to know how to love him. Chapter 9. I believe he took advantage of the migration of wild birds to escape. On the morning of departure, he packed up his planet. He carefully cleaned his active volcano. It has 2 active volcanoes. And it is very convenient to heat breakfast in the morning. It also has an extinct volcano. But, as he says, you never know. So he swept through extinct volcanoes, too. If cleaned up well, the volcano will burn slowly and regularly without erupting. A volcanic eruption is like a chimney on fire. Apparently, on our planet, we were too small to sweep the volcano. That's why they give us so much trouble. The little prince also pulled out the last buds of the baobab tree with a somewhat melancholy mood. He thought he would never have to come back. But that morning, All these familiar tasks seemed very pleasant to him. And, as he watered the flower for the last time and prepared to hide it under the globe, he found himself wanting to cry. "Goodbye," he said to the flower. But she didn't answer him. "Goodbye," he repeated. Huar coughed. But it wasn't because he had a cold. "I'm so stupid," she finally told him. "Please say it again. Try to be happy." He was surprised that he wasn't rebuked. He stood there completely unfocused, his orb hanging in the air. He didn't understand this quiet tenderness. "But yes, I love you," said the flower. "Because of me, you don't know this. It doesn't matter. But you are just as stupid as me. Try to be happy." He didn't understand this quiet tenderness. "But yes, I love you," said the flower. "Because of me, you don't know this. It doesn't matter. But you are just as stupid as me. Try to be happy, don't disturb the world. I don't want it anymore. But the wind, am not that cold. Fresh air at night is good for me. I am a flower. But the animals, if I want to understand butterflies, I have to raise 2 or 3 caterpillars. It seems so beautiful. Otherwise, who would come to see me? You will be far away. As for big animals, I'm not afraid at all. I have my claws. She also innocently exposed her 4 thorns. Then she added, "Don't hang around like that, it's annoying. You decide to leave." Leave. Because she didn't want him to see her cry. What a proud flower that is. Chapter 10. He is in 325. Asteroid areas 326, 327, 328, 329 and 330. So he began visiting these asteroids in search of work and study. In the first there lived a king. The king was dressed in purple and ermine, sitting on a very simple but majestic throne. "Ah!" cried the king, when he saw the little prince, that this was a subject. The little prince wanted to know, "He has never seen me before, how can he recognize me?" He didn't know that for the king, the world was very simple. All men are subjects. "Come closer so I can see you better," the king said, feeling very proud to finally be someone's king. The little prince looked for a place to sit. But the entire planet is cluttered with gorgeous mink cloaks. So he continued to stand, and because he was tired, he yawned. The king told him that yawning in front of the king was against etiquette. "I forbid you." "I can't help it," replied the little prince, who was very confused. "After a long journey, I didn't even sleep well." Then, the king said, "I order you to yawn." "I haven't seen anyone yawn in years. Yawning is a curiosity to me. After a long journey, I didn't even sleep well." Then, the king said, "I order you to yawn." "I haven't seen anyone yawn in years. Yawning is a curiosity to me. Let's go." Yawned again. "This is a command. It scares me, I can't," said the little prince with a blushing face. "Snort. Snort," replied the king. "So I order you to yawn sometimes, and sometimes." He stuttered a little and looked angry. Because the king essentially wants his authority to be respected. He does not tolerate disobedience. He is an absolute monarch. But since he was so good, he gave reasonable orders. "If I give an order," he often said, if I order a general to turn into a seabird, and the general disobeys, it is not the general's fault, it is my fault. I can sit down. Asked the little prince timidly. I command you to sit down, replied the king, majestically drawing aside part of his ermine cloak. But the little prince was surprised. The planet is small. What might a king rule over? Your Majesty, he said to him, please forgive me for doubting myself. I order you to question me, the king said quickly. Your Majesty, what do you rule over? About everything, the king answered very simply. First. The king pointed cautiously at his planet, other planets, and stars. About all this? Said the little prince. About all this, the king replied. For he is not only an absolute monarch, but a universal monarch. Do the stars obey your orders? Of course, the king told him. They obeyed immediately. I do not tolerate undisciplined behavior. Such power amazed the little prince. If he held it himself, he could witness, not 44, but 72, or even 100, or even 200 sunsets in the same day without having to pull up his chair. When he felt a little sad thinking about his abandoned little planet, he plucked up the courage to ask the king for forgiveness. I want to see the sunset, make me happy, order the sun to set. If I order a general to fly from one flower to another like a butterfly flower, or write a tragedy, or become a seabird. If the general does not carry out the orders he receives, who, he or I, will be at fault? That's you, the little prince said firmly. Precise. The king continued, we must ask from everyone what everyone can give. Authority is primarily based on reason. If you order your people to throw themselves into the sea, they will start a revolution. I have a right to demand obedience because my orders are reasonable. What about my sunset? Recalling the little prince, he never forgot the question once he asked it. Your sunset, you will have it. I will ask for it. But from what I know about the government, I would wait until conditions are favorable. When will it happen? Asked the little prince. The king replied that he first consulted a big calendar. About 7:40 tonight. You will see how obeyed I am. The little prince yawned. He regretted missing the sunset. Then he got a little bored. I have nothing more to do here, he said to the king. I'm leaving again. Don't go, the king replied. He was proud to have a subject. Don't leave, I'll make you the minister. What minister? For justice. But no one can judge. We don't know, the king told him. I have not visited my kingdom yet. He was proud to have a subject. Don't leave, I'll make you the minister. What minister? For justice. But no one can judge. We don't know, the king told him. I have not visited my kingdom yet. Walking is also very tiring. Oh. But I have seen it, said the little prince, and he bent down and looked again at the other side of the earth. There is no one there either. Then you will judge yourself, replied the king. This is the most difficult. It is much harder to judge yourself than it is to judge others. If you can successfully judge yourself, it's because you're really smart. I, said the little prince, can judge myself anywhere. I don't need to live here. Ugh. The king said, I believe there is an old mouse somewhere on my planet. I hear it at night. You can judge this old rat. Every now and then you would sentence him to death. So his life will depend on your justice. But you'll forgive it every time to save money. There is only one. I, replied the little prince, do not like sentencing people to death. I think I'm leaving. No, said the king. But the little prince was ready and did not want to disturb the old monarch any more. If your majesty wishes to be obeyed on time, she can give me a reasonable order. For example, she could order me to leave a minute ago. I think the conditions are quite favorable. The king did not answer. The little prince hesitated for a moment, then sighed and set off. I appoint you as my ambassador, the king shouted hastily. He has a very authoritative air. The adults are very strange. The little prince said to himself during the journey. Chapter 11. There is a vain man living on the second planet. Ah! Here is a visit from an admirer. The vain man in the distance exclaimed as soon as he saw the little prince. Because, for the vain person, everyone else is an admirer. Hello, said the little prince. You have an interesting hat. It was to greet him, replied the vain man. It is to say hello when I am happy. Unfortunately, no one ever passes here. Everyone else is an admirer. Hello, said the little prince. You have an interesting hat. It was to greet him, replied the vain man. It is to say hello when I am happy. Unfortunately, no one ever passes here. Oh yes? The little prince said in confusion. Clap your hands, the vain man suggested. The little prince clapped his hands. The vain man saluted humbly and raised his hat. This is more interesting than the king's visit, the little prince said to himself. He started clapping again. The vain man raised his hat again and began to salute. After 5 minutes of practice, the little prince grew tired of the monotony of the game. And, in order for the hat to fall off, he asked, what must be done? But the vain man did not hear his words. The vain man only hears praise. Do you really appreciate me? He asked the little prince. What does admire mean? Admiration means recognizing that I am the most beautiful, best dressed, richest, and smartest person on the planet. But you are alone on your planet. Please make me happy. Still admire me. I admire you. The little prince shrugged and said, but how could this possibly interest you? Then the little prince left. My lord must be very strange, he simply said to himself during the journey. Chapter 12. The next planet is inhabited by a drinker. Although this visit was short, it plunged the little prince into great melancholy. What are you doing here? He said to the drinker, who he found sitting quietly in front of a pile of empty bottles and a pile of full bottles. I drink. The drinker replied with a sad look on his face. Why do you drink? Asked the little prince. To forget, the drinker replied. Forgot what? Asked the little prince, who already pitied him. Forget that I feel ashamed, the drinker admitted with his head lowered. What to be ashamed of? Asked the little prince, who wanted to help him. Drinking is shameful. After the drunkard finished speaking, he fell into silence completely. The little prince left with confusion. "My lord is indeed very, very strange," he said to himself during the journey. Chapter 13. The fourth planet is the planet of merchants. The man was so busy that he didn't even raise his head when the little prince arrived. "Hello," he said to him. "Your cigarette is out." 3 plus 2 equals 5. 5 7 12. 12:35. Good morning. 15 o'clock and 7:22. 22 and 6:28. No time to reopen it. 26:05:31. Phew. That is 501,622,731. 500 million what? Well? Are you still there? 501 million, I don't know anymore. I have too much work. I'm serious, I don't amuse myself with nonsense. 257. 50 million. The little prince repeated. He had never given up on a problem in his life. The businessman raised his head. I have lived on this planet for 54 years. I was only interrupted 3 times. The first time was 22 years ago, when a scarab beetle fell from God knows where. He made a horrible noise and I made 4 more mistakes. The second time was 11 years ago, when rheumatism broke out. I lack exercise. I don't have time to hang around. I'm serious, I am. The third time, here it comes. So I said 501 million. Millions of what? The merchant understood that peace was hopeless. We sometimes see millions of these little things in the sky. Fly. But no. Sparkly little things. But no. A golden little thing that makes lazy people dream. But I'm serious. I don't have time to daydream. Star, that's right. Star. So what are you going to do with these 500 million stars? 500 million. 622,731. I am a serious person and do you own the stars? Rule. It's very different. What good does having stars do you? It helped me get rich. What good does being rich do you? If anyone finds it, buy more stars. Rule. It's very different. What good does having stars do you? It helped me get rich. What good does being rich do you? If anyone finds it, buy more stars. The little prince said to himself, this man's reasoning is a bit like my drunkard. But he still asked, how can we have stars? Whose are they? The merchant retorted angrily. I have no idea. Not to anyone. nothing to say, and the little prince left. My lord must be great, he simply said to himself during the journey. Chapter 14. The fifth planet is curious. This is the smallest one. There was just enough room for a street lamp and a street lamp lighter. The little prince could not explain that somewhere in the sky, on a planet without houses or people. What is the use of a street lamp and street lamp lighter? However, he said to himself, perhaps this person is ridiculous. Yet he is no more ridiculous than kings, vain men, merchants, and drunkards. At least his job is meaningful. When he lights up the street lamp, it was as if he had given birth to another star, or a flower. When he turns off the street lights, the flowers or stars fall asleep. This is a very good career. It's really useful because it's beautiful. As he approached the planet, he greeted the lighter respectfully. Good morning. Why did you turn off the street lights? This is an order, replied the lamplighter. Good morning. How much is the deposit? This is to turn off my street lights. Good evening. He lit it again. But why do you want to reopen it? Good morning. Why did you turn off the street lights? This is an order, replied the lamplighter. Good morning. How much is the deposit? This is to turn off my street lights. Good evening. He lit it again. But why do you want to reopen it? This is an order, replied the lamplighter. I do not understand, said the little prince. There is nothing to understand, said the lamplighter. Instructions are instructions. Good morning. He turned off the street light. Then he wiped his forehead with a red plaid handkerchief. My job here is terrible. It would have made sense, said the little prince. There is nothing to understand, said the lamplighter. Instructions are instructions. Good morning. He turned off the street light. Then he wiped his forehead with a red plaid handkerchief. My job here is terrible. It would have made sense. I turn it off in the morning. Opened it again at night. I rest the rest of the day and sleep the rest of the night. How has the description changed since then? Said the lamplighter, indicating that there had been no change. This is tragedy. The Earth's rotation rate is getting faster every year, but the instructions have not changed. So? Said the little prince. So now it's spinning once a minute and I don't have a second to rest. I open and close every minute. That's funny. Only 1 minute left in your home. So? Said the little prince. So now it's spinning once a minute and I don't have a second to rest. I open and close every minute. That's funny. Only 1 minute left in your home. It's not funny at all, said the lamplighter. We have been chatting together for a month. 1 month? Yes. 30 minutes. 30 days. Good evening. Then he turned on the street light again. We have been chatting together for a month. 1 month? Yes. 30 minutes. 30 days. Good evening. Then he turned on the street light again. The little prince looked at him and liked this lighter that was so faithful to the instructions. He thought of the sunsets he once pulled up his chair to look for. He wanted to help his friend. You know, I know a way to give you a break at any time. I also want to, said the lamplighter. Because we can be loyal and lazy at the same time. Dot. The little prince continued. Dot. Your planet is so small that you can circle it in 3 steps. You just have to walk slowly enough to stay in the sun. When you want to take a break, you walk, and the day lasts as long as you want. That doesn't help me, said the lamplighter. My favorite thing in life is sleeping. Bad luck, said the little prince. That's bad luck, said the lamplighter. Good morning. He turned off the street light. The little prince said to himself that as he moved on, this man would be despised by all others, by kings, by vain people, by drunkards. Despised by businessmen. However, this is the only thing that doesn't seem ridiculous to me. Maybe it's because he cares about things other than himself. He sighed regretfully and said to himself again, this is the only person I can make friends with. But his planet is too small. There is no room for 2 people. What the little prince did not dare to admit was that he missed this happy planet. First of all, it was because there were 1,440 sunsets every 24 hours. Chapter 15. The 6th planet is a planet 10 times larger. There lived an old gentleman who wrote a great book. Catch. This is an explorer. When he saw the little prince, he cried. The little prince sat on the table and breathed softly. He has traveled so much. Where are you from? The old gentleman said to him. What is this big book? Said the little prince. A geographer. He was a scholar who knew where the oceans, rivers, cities, mountains, and deserts were. This is interesting, said the little prince. This is finally a real job. He looked around the geographer's planet. He had never seen such a majestic planet before. Your planet is very beautiful. Is there an ocean? I don't know, said the geographer. The little prince was very disappointed. What about the mountain? I don't know, said the geographer. And cities and rivers and deserts? I don't know, said the geographer. But you are a geographer. That's right, but I'm not an explorer, says the geographer. Why is that? Said the little prince. Because drunk people see double images. This is possible. Therefore, when an explorer behaves morally well, his findings are investigated. Shall we go see it? No. It's too complicated. But explorers are required to provide proof. For example, if it involves discovering a large mountain, he must bring back large rocks. The geographer was suddenly moved. But you come from far away. You are an explorer. You have to describe your planet to me. The geographer opened his register and sharpened his pencil. We started by penciling in the explorer's story. We wait, writing in ink, until the explorer provides evidence. So? Asked the geographer. You have to describe your planet to me. The geographer opened his register and sharpened his pencil. We started by penciling in the explorer's story. We wait, writing in ink, until the explorer provides evidence. So? Asked the geographer. Oh, said the little prince. At home, not very interesting, very small. I have 3 volcanoes. 2 active volcanoes and 1 extinct volcano. But you never know. You never know, say geographers. I also have a flower. We didn't notice the flowers, geographers say. Why is that? This is the most beautiful. Because flowers are short-lived. What does transient mean? Geographers say that geography is the most serious of all books. They never go out of style. It is very rare for a mountain to change location. Water in the ocean is rare. We write things that last forever. Up. It's the same for the rest of us, the geographer said. The most important thing for us is the mountains. She hasn't changed. But what does ephemeral mean? The little prince repeated that he had never given up once he had asked a question in his life. Means facing the threat of imminent disappearance. My flowers are threatened with disappearance, certainly. My flowers are short-lived. The little prince said to himself, it only has 4 thorns to protect it from the world. I left her alone at home. This was the first move he regretted. But he mustered up his courage. What do you suggest I visit? He asked. Earth, replied the geographer. She has a good reputation. The little prince walked away, thinking about his flowers. Chapter 16. Therefore, the 7th planet is the Earth. The Earth is more than just a planet. There were 111 kings, of course, don't forget the Black Kings, 7,000 geographers, 900,000 merchants. 7.5 million drunkards and 311 million vain people, that is, about 2 billion people. Adults. To give you an idea of the size of the Earth, I will tell you that before electricity was invented, we must maintain a veritable army of 462,511 lighters on all 6 continents. Street lights. The effect is very good when viewed from a distance. The movements of this army were as regular as a ballet. First it was the turn of the lamplighters from New Zealand and Australia. Then they lit lanterns and went to sleep. Later, lamplighters from China and Siberia joined the dance. Then they too retreated into the background. Next it was the turn of the lamplighters from Russia and India. Then there are those from Africa and Europe. Then there are those from South America. And then there are those from North America. Then they too retreated into the background. Next it was the turn of the lamplighters from Russia and India. Then there are those from Africa and Europe. Then there are those from South America. And then there are those from North America. And they never make a mistake in the order they take the stage. It's magnificent. Only the lighting of the only street light in the North Pole and the colleagues of the only street light in the South Pole live a life of idleness, working twice a year. Chapter 17. When we want to be witty, sometimes we tell a little lie. I wasn't being honest when I told you about the streetlight lighter. I run the risk of giving a false idea of our planet to those who don't understand it. Humans occupy very little space on Earth. If the planet's 2 billion inhabitants stood up straight and slightly close together, as if in a meeting, they could easily fit into a public square 20 miles long and 20 miles wide. We could cram humans onto the smallest island in the Pacific. Of course the adults will not believe you. They think they take up a lot of space. They consider themselves as important as the baobab tree. Therefore, you would advise them to do the calculations. They like numbers. They will love it. But don't waste time thinking about it. It's useless. You trust me. When the little prince came to the earth, he was surprised not to see anyone. When the moon's ring moved in the sand, he began to worry that he had come to the wrong planet. Good night, said the little prince casually. Good night, said the snake. Which planet did I fall on? Asked the little prince. On Earth, in Africa, the snake replied. Ah. Then there are no people on Earth. This is a desert. There is no one in the desert. The Earth is big, said the snake. The little prince sat on a stone and looked up at the sky. I wonder, he said, whether the stars were lit so that everyone could one day find his own. Look at my planet. She's right above us, but how far away she is. She is beautiful, said the snake. What are you doing here? I have difficulty with a flower, said the little prince. Ah, said the snake. They were silent. Where are the men? What are you doing here? I have difficulty with a flower, said the little prince. Ah, said the snake. They were silent. Where are the men? The little prince finally answered. We are a little lonely in the desert. We are lonely among humans too, said the snake. You are a strange creature, he said to her at last, as thin as a finger. But I am stronger than a king's finger, said the snake. The little prince smiled and said, You are not very strong, you don't even have legs, you can't even travel. I can take you further than the boat, said the snake. It was wrapped around the little prince's ankle like a golden bracelet. Whoever I touch, I return to the land from which he came, he said again. But you are pure, you come from the stars. The little prince said nothing. On this granite earth. You make me feel sorry for you, you are so weak. If you miss your planet too much, one day I can help you. I can. Oh. I understand, said the little prince, but why do you always talk about riddles? I solved them all, said the snake. They were silent. Chapter 18. The little prince crossed the desert and only met a flower. A flower with 3 petals, a flower with nothing. Hello, said the little prince. Hello, said the flower. Where are the men? The little prince asked politely. One day, Hua saw a caravan passing by. Man? I think. I met them years ago. But you never know where to find them. The wind carries them. Their lack of roots bothers them. Goodbye, said the little prince. Goodbye, said the flower. Chapter 19. The little prince climbed up a high mountain. The only mountains he knew were 3 knee-high volcanoes. And he used an extinct volcano as a stool. The only mountains he knew were 3 knee-high volcanoes. And he used an extinct volcano as a stool. From such a high mountain, he said to himself, I would see the whole planet and all its people at once. But he saw only sharp needles of rock. Hello, he said casually. Hello, 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 replied the echo. Who are you? Said the little prince. Who are you, who are you, who are you, the echo replied. Be my friend, I'm lonely, he said. I am alone, I am alone, I am alone, echo replied. What a strange planet. He thought, it's very dry, very sharp, and very salty. And men lack imagination. They repeat what they are told. There is a flower in my house, she always speaks first. Chapter 20. What a strange planet. He thought, it's very dry, very sharp, and very salty. After walking for a long time in the snow, I finally found a way. All roads lead to men. Hello, he said. It was a garden full of roses. Hello, Rose said. The little prince looked at them. They all look like her flowers. Who are you? He asked them in surprise. We are roses, said the rose. Ah, the little prince said. He felt very unhappy. Her flowers tell her that she is the only one of her kind in the universe. There are 5,000 of them in one garden, and they are all the same. She would be very upset, he said to himself, if she saw. She would have a bad cough and pretend to be dead to avoid ridicule, or I would have to pretend to treat her. Myself, and shame on me, she would really let herself die. Then he said to himself, I thought I had a unique flower. And I only have an ordinary rose. That and my 3 volcanoes up to my knees, one of which may be extinct forever, doesn't matter. Don't make me a great prince. Then he lay on the grass and cried. Chapter 21. Just then, the fox appeared. Hello, said the fox. Hello, the little prince replied politely. He turned around, but saw nothing. Here I am, said the voice, under the apple tree. Who are you? Said the little prince. You are very beautiful. I am a fox, said the fox. Come and play Men no longer have time to understand anything. They buy ready-made things from merchants. But because the businessman has no friends, people no longer have friends. Is the root of misunderstanding. But, every day, you can sit a little closer. The next day, the little prince came back. It's best to come back at the same time, said the fox. If you come, let's say 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I've been happy since 3 o'clock. The longer it goes, the happier I feel. It's already 4 o'clock and I'll be restless. I'll discover the price of happiness. But if you come when, I never know when you can dress my heart. This requires ritual. What is a ritual? Said the little prince. This is also a very forgotten thing, said the fox. This is what makes one day different from other days, an hour from other times. For example, I have a ritual between my hunters. They dance with the village girls every Thursday. So Thursday is a great day. I'm going for a walk in the vineyard. If the hunter danced at any time, the days would be the same and I would have no vacation. So the little prince tamed the fox. When the departure time approaches, the fox said, I will cry. It's all your fault, said the little prince. I didn't want to hurt you, but you wanted me to tame you, of course, said the fox. But you will cry, said the little prince. Of course, said the fox. So you gain nothing. I won, said the fox. Because of the color of wheat. Then he added, Go and look at the roses again. You will understand that your world is unique. You will come back and say goodbye to me, and I will tell you a secret. The little prince went to see the roses again. Because of the color of wheat. Then he added, Go and look at the roses again. You will understand that your world is unique. You will come back and say goodbye to me, and I will tell you a secret. The little prince went to see the roses again. You are nothing like my roses. You are nothing yet, he told them. No one has tamed you, and you have tamed no one. You are like my fox. It's just a fox, like 100,000 other foxes. But I made him my friend. He is unique in the world now. The globe. Because it's her I'm protecting with my screen. Because I killed her caterpillars, except 2 or 3 butterflies. Because I listen to her complain, or brag, or even stay silent sometimes. Because it is my rose. He returned to the fox again. Goodbye, he said. Goodbye, said the fox. This is my secret. It's simple. We can only see clearly if we put our minds to it. The essence is invisible to the naked eye. To remember that essence is invisible to the naked eye, repeated the little prince. It's the time you waste on your roses that makes your roses so important. That was the time I lost for roses, said the little said the switchman. What are you doing here? Said the little prince. I sort the passengers into groups of 1,000, said the switchman. I send the trains to carry them away, sometimes to the right, sometimes to the left. A torrent of bright light, rumbling like thunder, set off the signal box. Trembling. They were anxious, said the little prince. What are they looking for? The mechanic himself doesn't know, said the switchman. Then a second, rapid flash of light rumbled in the opposite direction. Have they come back yet? Asked the little prince. They are different, said the switchman. What are they looking for? The mechanic himself doesn't know, said the switchman. Then a second, rapid flash of light rumbled in the opposite direction. Have they come back yet? Asked the little prince. They are different, said the switchman. This is an exchange. Where are they unhappy? We're not happy anywhere, said the switchman. There was a rumble of thunder, and a third ray of light shone out. Are they hunting the first travelers? Asked the little prince. They weren't after anything at all, the switchman said. They sleep there, or yawn. Children bang their noses against the windows alone. Only children know what they are looking for, said the little prince. They waste their time on a rag doll which becomes very important if it is taken away from them. They'll cry. They're lucky, the switchman said. Chapter 23. Hello, said the little prince. Hello, said the businessman. He was a seller of complex thirst quenchers. We swallowed 1 pill a week and no longer felt the need to drink water. Why are you selling this? Said the little prince. This saves a lot of time, the businessman said. Experts have done the math. We save 53 minutes every week. Said the little prince. This saves a lot of time, the businessman said. Experts have done the math. We save 53 minutes every week. What should we do in those 53 minutes? We do what we want to do, said the little prince to himself. If I had 53 minutes of free time, I would slowly walk towards the fountain. Chapter 24. That was the 8th day I collapsed in the desert, while I drank the last drop of water, while listening to the businessman's story. I said to the little prince. Your memory is wonderful, but my plane is not repaired yet. I have nothing to drink, and I would be happy if I could slowly walk to the fountain. My fox friend, he said to me, my boy, this is no longer I'm very touched. I felt like I was carrying a fragile treasure with me. I even feel that nothing on earth is more fragile. I looked at this pale forehead, these closed eyes, and this strand of hair shaking in the wind under the moonlight, and I said to myself, what I see is just the bark of the tree, and the most important thing is the invisible. When his half-parted lips hinted at a half-smile, I said to myself again, what touches me most about this sleeping little prince is his devotion to the flower, which is the image of a rose that shines on him, like a rose, even when he is sleeping. And I guess he is even more vulnerable. The lamp must be well protected, a gust of wind can blow it out. Walking like this, I discovered the well at dawn. Chapter 25. Oh people, said the little prince, they sank into the rapids. But they no longer know what they are looking for. So they just go round and round and round. He added, it's not worth it. The well we arrived at didn't look like the other Saharan wells. Sahara wells are simple holes dug in the sand. This one looks like a well in the village. But there was no village there and I thought I was dreaming. It's strange, I said to the little prince, everything is ready, pulley, bucket and rope. He smiled, touched the rope and made the pulley rotate. When the wind has been asleep for a long time, the pulley groans like an ancient weather vane. You heard, said the little prince, we woke up this well and it sang. I didn't want him to make the effort. Leave it to me, I said to him, it's for you, it's too heavy. I slowly raised the bucket to the edge. I installed it upright. The song of the pulley continued to be heard in my ears, and in the still trembling water, I saw the sun trembling. I'm thirsty, the little prince said, give me some water, I understand what he has been looking for. I raised the bucket to his lips. He drank with his eyes closed. As sweet as a party. This water is not food. It was born of walking under the stars, the song of the pulley, and the effort of my arms. It's good for the heart and like a gift. When I was a little boy, the lights of the Christmas tree, the music of midnight mass, and the sweet smiles graced the Christmas gifts I received. The little prince said, people from your area planted 5,000 roses in the same garden. But they did not find what they were looking for. They could not find it, I answered. Yet what they were looking for could be found in a rose or a drop of water. Of course, I replied. The little prince added, but the eyes are blind. You have to search with your heart. I've been drinking. I breathe well. At dawn the sand is the color of honey. I'm also really happy with this honey color. Why must I be sad? You must keep your promise. The little prince said to me gently. I sat next to me again. What promise? You know, the muzzle of my sheep, I am responsible for this flower. I took the sketch out of my pocket. I sat next to me again. What promise? You know, the muzzle of my sheep, I am responsible for this flower. I took the sketch out of my pocket. The little prince saw them and smiled and said, your baobab trees, they look a bit like cabbage. Oh, I'm so proud of the baobab tree. Your fox, its ears, they look a bit like horns, and they're so long. He laughed again. You're not being fair, little one, I don't know how to draw anything other than a closed boa constrictor and an open boa constrictor. Oh. Everything will be fine, he said, and the kids know it. So I drew a muzzle. When I gave it to him, my heart sank. You have plans that I don't know about. But he didn't answer me. He said to me, "You know, I fell to earth. Tomorrow is the anniversary." Then, after a moment of silence, he said again, "I fell very close to here." He blushed. I don't know why, but I felt a strange sadness again. However, I thought of a question, so. It is no accident that on the morning I met you 8 days ago you were walking alone, 1,000 miles from any inhabited country. Are you back to the point where you fell? The little prince blushed again. I added hesitantly, Maybe because of birthday? The little prince blushed again. He never answers questions, but when you blush, that means, yes, right? Ah. Maybe because of birthday? The little prince blushed again. He never answers questions, but when you blush, that means, yes, right? Ah. I told him I was scared. But he answered me, "You have to work now. You must return to your machine. I'm here for you. Come back tomorrow night." But I'm not reassured. I thought of the fox. If we allow, come back tomorrow night. But I'm not reassured. I thought of the fox. If we allow ourselves to be tamed, we risk weeping. Chapter 26. Next to the well are the ruins of an ancient stone wall. The next night, when I came back from get off work, I saw my little prince sitting there with his legs dangling from a distance. I heard him say, "Don't you remember?" he said. "Not quite here." No doubt another voice answered him, for he answered, "What if? If. Even though it's daytime. But this is not the place." I continued walking towards the wall. I still didn't see or hear anyone. However, the little prince replied, "Of course. You'll see where my trace begins in the sand. You just have to wait for me there. I'll be there tonight." I was 20 meters away from the wall and still couldn't see anything. The little prince was silent for a while, and then said, "Do you have good venom? Are you sure you won't make me suffer for too long?" I stopped, my heart sank, but I still didn't understand. "Now go away," he said, "I want to go back." Then I looked down at the foot of the wall and jumped up. There he was, lifted up to the little prince, one of those yellow snakes that kills you in 30 seconds. As I reached into my pocket and pulled out the revolver, I ran but heard the sound I made. The snake sank gently into the sand like a stream of water that was about to die out. Without much squeezing, it slipped between the stones, accompanied by a slight metallic sound. I reached the wall in time and held my little prince in my arms. His face was as pale as snow. What a story. You are talking to a snake now. I untied his eternal golden scarf. I wet his temples and made him drink the water. Now I don't dare ask him anything. He looked at me seriously and put his arms around my neck. As he was shot with the rifle, I felt his heart beating like a dying bird. He said to me, "I'm glad you found what your machine was missing. You can go home." How do you know? I just came to tell him. To everyone's surprise, my work was a success. He didn't answer my question, but added, "Me too, I'm going home today." Then, he said melancholy, "Further, more difficult, I feel like there is something unusual is happening." I held him in my arms like a child, but I felt that he was falling vertically into the abyss, and I was powerless to stop him. He looked serious and lost. "I have yours." "Sheep." I still have the crates for the sheep. And I still have a gun. He smiled sadly. I've been waiting for a long time. I feel that the weather is getting warmer. Little guy, you are scared. Of course he is. But he chuckled and said, tonight I will be even more scared. Once again I felt cold with the feeling of irreversibility. I realized I couldn't bear the thought of never hearing that laughter again. To me, it's like a fountain in the desert. Little one, I want to hear you laugh again. But he said to me, tonight is the first anniversary. My star is right above where I fell last year. Little man, isn't this story about snakes, encounters and stars a nightmare? But he didn't answer my question. He said to me, the important things are invisible. Of course. Just like the flowers. If you like a flower among the stars, then it is sweet to look up at the sky at night. All the stars are blooming. Of course. Just like water. That drink you gave me was like music to the ears, because there were pulleys and ropes, you remember, well. Of course, you will look at the stars at night. My place is too small. I can't tell you where my place is. Just like this. My star, it will be one of your stars. So, you will enjoy looking at all the stars, and they will all become your friends. Then I will give you a gift. He smiled again. Ah. Little guy. Boy, I love hearing that laugh. This will be my gift, it will be like water. What do you mean? People have different stars. For some people who travel, the stars are guides. To others, they are nothing more than small lights. To other knowledgeable people, they are questions. To my merchants, they are gold. But all these stars were silent. You will have a unique star. What do you mean? When you look up at the night sky. Since I will live in one of them, since I will laugh in one of them, it will seem to you that all the stars are laughing. You will have a smiling star. He laughed again. When you're comforted, and we always comfort each other, you will be glad to know me. You will always be my friend. You'll want to laugh with me. Sometimes you open the window, like that, just for fun, and your friends will be surprised to see you looking at the sky and laughing. So you tell them, yes, stars always make me laugh. They will think you are crazy. I would have played a very naughty trick on you. He laughed again. It's as if I gave you not stars, but many little bells that can laugh. He laughed again. Then he became serious again. Tonight, you know, don't come. I will not leave you. I would look like I was in pain. I would look a little like I was dying. That's it. Don't come to see this, it's not worth it. I won't leave you. But he was worried. I'm telling you this, it's also because of that snake. He can't bite you, snakes are nasty. It can bite for pleasure, I will not leave you. But one thing reassured him. Indeed, they had no second bite of venom. I did not see him set out that night. He escaped silently. When I managed to get to him, he was walking steadily and quickly. He only told me, "Ah, you are there." He held my hand. But he still tortured himself like this. You are wrong. You'll be in trouble. I'll look like I'm dead, but that's not true. I fell silent. You understand. Too far. I can't take this body with me. Too heavy. Dot. I was silent. But it will be like an old discarded bark. The old bark is not sad. I was silent. I can't take this body with me. Too heavy. Dot. I was silent. But it will be like an old discarded bark. The old bark is not sad. I was silent. He became a little frustrated. But he made another effort. It's going to be good, you know. I also look at the stars. All the stars will be pits with rusty pulleys. All the stars will pour me a glass of wine. I fell silent. Dot. This is going to be so much fun. You have 500 million bells, I have 500 million fountains. He was also silent, because he was crying. Right there. Let me take a step alone. He sat down because he was afraid. He added, you know, my flower, I am responsible for it. And she is so weak. And she was so naive. She has 4 thorns that protect her from the world. I sat down. Because I can't stand up anymore. He said, that's it, that's it. He hesitated again, and then stood up. He took a step. I couldn't move. There was nothing but a flash of yellow near his ankle. He was motionless. He didn't shout. He fell softly like a tree falling. It didn't even make a sound because of the sand. Chapter 27. Of course, it's been 6 years now. I've never told this story before. My comrades were delighted to see me alive again. I was very sad, but I told them, I am very tired. Now I have comforted myself a little. Which is to say, not exactly. But it's clear to me that he's back on his home planet because of Dawn. I didn't find his body. The body is not that heavy, and I love listening to the stars at night. It's like 500 million bells. But now something extraordinary is happening. I designed the muzzle for the little prince, but I forgot to add a belt. He could never attach it to a sheep. So I wonder, what happened on his planet? Maybe the sheep ate the flowers. Sometimes I say to myself, of course not. The little prince locked his flowers in his glass ball every night down. He looked carefully at his sheep. Then I was happy. All the stars smiled tenderly. Sometimes I said to myself, we are upset again and again, that's enough. One night he forgot the glass ball, or the sheep went out silently in the night. Then the ringtones all turned into tears. This is a big mystery. For you who also love the little prince, for me, nothing in the universe is the same, if somewhere, we don't know where, a sheep we don't know. Yes or no, eat a rose, look at the sky. Ask yourself, did the sheep eat the flowers? You will see how everything has changed. No adult will understand how important this is. To me, this is the most beautiful and saddest landscape in the world. It's the same scenery as the previous page, but I drew it again for everyone to see. It was here that the little prince appeared on the earth and then disappeared. If you go to the African desert one day and observe this landscape carefully, you will definitely recognize it. And if you happen to pass by there, I beg you, don't rush and just wait a moment under the stars. If a child comes to you then, if he smiles, if he has blonde hair, if he does not answer when asked,